they just appreciate our work for what it is. And like, they just want us and they want our vision. So I think that's really special. And I know a lot of people don't see it this way, but I feel like it's a space where we actually get to be like true artists and like, and photograph and capture things in our own way without having, you know, like an art director, a designer, or whoever, a whole team behind it, kind of telling us like how it should look, what it should feel like, what it should be like. We just get to do it how we want and the way we see it. And especially after building pretty good relationships with most of our couples and clients, that we can like tell their relationship story, their love story in the most honorable way to them.
I want to start the podcast not from zero, but give like a little introduction for everybody who's listening and give context why we are talking. This is it. Erin and I met at a wonderful workshop with Benjamin Wheeler back in London in January of 2023, so last year. And it was wonderful to not only chat a little bit before, but we had some good chats at the workshop. Not only that I love your photography and you as a person, then I got to know that Mitch is the significant other half of you that does the green so well. So I wanted to talk to both of you, which is awesome. I did a written intro to you guys. And one thing I actually want to mention, what was so fun to me and is stuck to my mind is like, yeah, so Erin, where do you live? Yeah, Peter McKinnon lives down the road from me, and which is one of...
I forgot about that. Yes. Yeah. You're like, how do you know him? I'm like, not like we grew up together, but yeah, like I know him from like back in the day.
And,
so
you haven't watched one video that he did?
I think maybe like maybe half a video. I know it's funny because he actually wrote me about a year ago being like, we should do something together. And I was like, I should really watch what you put out. But yeah, he's honestly, he's amazing. He's incredible. Like as a human.
But this is not about him. This is not about Peter. This is about you guys, which you're at least.
I forgot. I totally forgot about that.
That's simply amazing. So I'm actually going to read this off the paper that I have in front of me because I cannot freestyle this. Today I'm chatting with Erin Leydon. Do I say that correctly?
Yes.
And Mitch Syer.
That's it. Yeah.
Good.
Perfect.
A talented photography couple and fashion forward duo from Toronto, Canada. They have a gift for capturing genuine moments and turning them into lasting memories. Erin's approach to photography is grounded in her passion for telling stories through her lens, whether it's a wedding or a portrait session, and is not afraid to stand in front of the camera herself, latest as a testimonial for Uniqlo Canada, where Erin actually had one of your photographs on a tote bag printed?
Yeah.
And Mitch complements her work with the expertise in post-processing, ensuring each photo captures the essence of the moment. Together, they have perfected editing the color green in their photos, which is a challenge to every photographer. It's a unique skill that highlights their attention to detail and adds a distinctive touch to their work. The duo was recently featured in the list of top 18 wedding photographers in Canada. Together, we're going to explore their approach to photography and the little things that make their style stand out. So welcome, Erin and Mitch. Thanks
so
for
much.
time.
What a good
I hope
intro.
that was not too cheesy.
No, I love that.
No, not at all. I love the mention of greens. I feel like that's something that isn't appreciated enough almost. And I feel like it's something that I always notice in other people's work. So it's cool that you mentioned that the greens are something that stand out to you as well, because just that color alone can make or break a photo, in our opinion, for sure. So,
it is. And diving right into this, I think what most people don't realize is that for white-skinned people, it's the pink and the green are on the exact opposite scale. So that's why it makes him so hard to balance the both. But yeah, I every time I look through photos where like in the garden, there was one that you featured on your Instagram a couple of weeks ago. I was like, how does this look actually really good on a garden wedding? And I was like, I would be devastated in shooting it. I appreciate that so much. So I want to do two things. I want to start in wedding photography and then a bit on the editorial photography that you also do. That I think is a very big part of your work as well. Yeah. So why is it so interesting to you guys to shoot weddings?
Do you want to?
Yeah, you can start off. I mean, you've been doing it longer than me.
Yeah. I mean, I have. I've been doing it for a very long time. I think honestly, for us, it's like a connection that we end up building with our clients, and that we actually get like a day where it's essentially perfect and set up for us, and that we can just kind of have like free reign over the day and tell the story from like our perspective with like the blessing of our couples. And at least in contrast to like editorial work or other work that we do, where there's normally like a whole team behind it. With this, we're sort of working with clients that like, they just appreciate our work for what it is. And like, they just want us and they want like our vision. So I think that's really special. And I know a lot of people don't see it this way, but I feel like it's a space where we actually get to be like true artists and like and photograph and capture things like in our own way without having, like an art director, a designer, whoever, a whole team behind it kind of telling us like how it should look, what it should feel like, what it should be like. We just get to do it how we want and the way we see it. And especially after building, pretty good relationships with most of our couples and clients, that we can like tell their relationship story, their love story in the most like honorable way to them.
Yeah. No, I think they're most interesting because they're always different, like Erin was saying, and because you do have the freedom to kind of do what you want. I feel like it's actually a common misconception that you think that because everything is so planned out so perfectly that you wouldn't really have much room for creativity or to like, have fun or even try new things. But to be honest, I feel like usually it's the weddings we do that we have the most creative freedom, for sure. It's the other editorial type stuff that you're talking about, where there's definitely more constraints around how something needs to look. And we were kind of looking more about for this, someone hires you because they love your work. They're just happy that you're there doing what you do. They want to see what you produce. They're less concerned about what they have in their mind. They're just leaving it 100% up to you. One of the best compliments we get is when clients go, yeah, do what you want. It's almost like, oh, wow. Okay. All right.
And it's fun because like they want to be like surprised by the photos.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, I mean, it's like, it's so fun giving them back after and being like, what? Like, I didn't even know you were there. Like, I didn't even know this happened. Whatever.
Catching moments they didn't expect, getting a family member laughing or looking, I don't know, anything. It's the best part for sure. But yeah.
It really stands out that you have this specific, it could be art direction, as I would see it from the outside, art direction that you would interact with your couples. Is that something that you do?
For sure. Yeah. Like helping with posing and stuff. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something we chat about before, and maybe you've had this before, and we get this with almost all of our couples because they're always like, by the way, we're awkward, we're uncomfortable, like we're not comfortable in front of a camera. We've never really been. Like my partner, my husband or whatever is just like, nervous about it. And it's, I would say almost 100% of our clients pretty much come to us with that, but they're like, but we do see in your images, like if they're unless you have all models, you must have a way with people that you're like explaining posing or helping with that and stuff. And I think we have like a really good balance of, obviously after doing this for so many years, knowing like the right poses and stuff, but like still feeling organic and true to them because we're very mindful of that. I think
letting people be themselves as well. We always let our clients know too, whether it's a wedding or any other scenario, we always let someone know too, or, whether it's a couple or whatever. We always let people know that if there's something we suggest that doesn't really feel like something they would do naturally, that they probably shouldn't be posing that way. Like if we get a couple to maybe like, kiss too many times, we've had people tell us like, we're not really like that, like kind of PDA sort of thing. Like it's so, we don't really want like a ton of photos of us like actually kissing, and we'll lean into that and be like, okay, great.
Yeah. And I think like, besides obviously like letting it be sort of free and more fluid and stuff, I also feel like, people just don't give themselves enough credit. I think a lot of people do look at, obviously before your wedding's coming up, you're looking at so much wedding imagery, wedding videos, wedding content in general, that I actually think it's pretty shocking how most of our clients actually do know what they're doing. And also I'm like, in so many ways, I always say to our clients too, I'm like, there's just so much happening that you don't even really like all the photos that you like or that you see, like you're going to be doing those things. Like you're going to be touching up your makeup in the mirror. You're going to be putting on your earrings. You're going to be getting your dress on.
We try and make moments happen.
Yeah. And like, but like also just the moments that already are happening.
Or like you said, art directing. It's like, you will do that. You know what I mean? We'll get those moments that feel candid or like very editorial, like whether it's a bride, like getting ready in the morning, putting her earrings in, but like maybe she would have done it in the bathroom on her own. But instead, Erin will go, okay, well, the light by this window is really nice. Like maybe go over there and like, then put your earrings in. So she's still having a real moment, except now it's being captured. So it's like kind of curated in a way to be like, I don't know, in the best light possible. But at the same time, it is still a natural moment. She would have done that regardless. But now Erin's in front of her shooting it, So it's like, there is some art direction, but I think a lot of it is left up to also being like, do what you would do. Do this the way that you would do it. Yeah. Which I think is important to us at least.
So would that be, if a bride or groom was listening, is that the thing you wanted to tell them, is like, just be yourself and trust and choose the right photographer, you feel comfortable? Because
absolutely. And I mean, like, I feel like I can speak for both of us. Sorry, but I mean, I just feel like I think that's honestly the most important. Yeah, I would definitely want clients to know that I want them to know that we want them to be themselves. Then we wouldn't want anyone to do anything that they're like, I don't know. I would want people to enjoy their day. So if we're getting them to do something that's making it less enjoyable for them, I don't know. You probably don't want to be doing it, right? And that's the most important thing. You want you to be having a good day first and foremost.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think we're very, very mindful of that.
I think so too.
Like throughout the day too, like being like, as much as we want to capture this and get like all the best photos, make sure they look amazing and help with posing or art directing and also letting them go about their day. We're also very like mindful of like that also has its limit. And there is a certain sort of special timing that like, if you're kind of running past that, they're not enjoying their day and they're not at their day. And I feel like then that makes us we're not doing our job. And, you know, I think I mean, again, we've all been there maybe on the other side of a camera where you're kind of like, is this done? Is this done?
Yeah.
And that as much as I think people want their photos and want these amazing photos, they also want them done in a timely manner. So we're very mindful of that and respectful of that too, that it's always an enjoyable experience and doesn't feel like drawn out or
it's a balance. It's a balance of like wanting to get everything selfishly for us because, you know, we do so many beautiful weddings. What?
Us and our client. Yeah. Like,
I mean, selfishly, we want the photos to turn out really good for us as well. But then at the same time, we want you to enjoy your day too, is my point. So we don't want to spend too much time posing shots that we know that we want. We also want you to just enjoy your day. And if that means having a little bit less time with a portrait session with us so you can have fun with your friends and family, I think you got to find like an even in between, I think.
Yeah.
Do you get it that people get intimidated and that would say, oh no, then, I don't look like this and I'm not a model. And I'm not sure that they get this intimidation when they approach you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, I 98% of what I post and share, they're not models. They're not. I'm like, I not to toot my own horn, but especially in the last couple of years, I feel like I'm really, really good with posing. I think we both are really good at helping people pose in like a natural way.
Because we do it most often.
That feels like themselves. Cause I think I play off of what people are already doing. Like, especially in the morning when I'm with a bride or you're with a groom, like I also give them like a lot of encouragement where I'm like, oh, you just did this. And like, that looked really, really good. Like, I love that. Or like pulling from things they naturally do. Cause everybody has their different things. And, you know, a lot of like, let's say my brides are really, really smiley. I'm like, you have amazing teeth. You have such a beautiful smile. Like, I love that. It comes to you organically, but some people maybe have a bit more of like a reserved, like,
maybe closed off,
but then I'm like, but I like that and I want to play with that because that's who you are. So I kind of end up saying to my couples or to people who do feel intimidated, because that's exactly what it is. I think when they come to me or they're like, well, like I don't look like this or this, and then I'm like, none of these people do either. Like we're mindful of that. Like that's who I work best with. And I actually had kind of like an aha moment last year, and not to say like it's still fun working with models and stuff. But I kind of had like this aha moment that I was like, I absolutely 100% for the rest of my life just want to work with like real people. I love it. It's a fun challenge, but I think there's just something so much more rewarding when somebody can, you know, like a real person can look at a photo and really truly see themselves, especially in their wedding photos and everything. So I just encourage them that I'm like, you absolutely do not need to be a model to have like a really, really great photo of yourself.
Of course.
How is it to work with your significant other?
Do you want to answer that first?
Do you want me to answer it first?
Yes, you go.
I think honestly, there's no difficulties, at least for me personally. It's been smooth and easy. And to be quite honest, I feel like this again is a misconception. I feel like people always think it's such a like, oh my God, you guys work together. You must be together all the time. We're not though. We're not together like as much as people might think. Like I mentioned before, it's very rare that I'm kind of like, say, for instance, on set shooting with Erin at like any of her other shoots besides the occasional engagement shoot and our weddings, of course. But besides that, I'll be home doing all like the post-processing, you know, like editing the weddings or other shoots that we've done.
I feel like my answer, because I was shooting weddings for how much longer before you started working with me?
Well, you could do I'm terrible at math, but you can probably do the math.
I think I shot my first wedding 10 years before because I shot my first wedding when I was 18. So quite young.
When we met, you were like, what? I don't know, 26 or 27 or something?
No, when we met, I was 20. Yeah, 26. But you probably shot, I think he shot his first wedding with me like,
I was trying to figure out how long
like
you've been doing it before me.
Yeah. So a while, like 10 years before him. Yeah. So it was interesting to have him come in. But I think I made you come work with me.
Yeah.
But I love it. I feel like I wouldn't have it any other way. I think it's so nice to have like a partner that like gets what I do and fully understands and fully, like, now that we do this together, that we both care an equal amount. And it's funny because where I like lack, he picks up, and vice versa. Especially when it comes to like, I think we just both have our different strengths and different weaknesses. And I think we really, really complement one another.
We have a mutual respect for each other as well. We were talking about this earlier, actually, how it's one of those things that I feel like you have to get pretty comfortable with even, say, an assistant or like an employee or something like that to really be your most honest self with them, like to really let them know when you're not happy with something they've done. I mean, like, for real, like,
and that's hard.
Be honest, not like, hey, so that thing you did, but Erin can come up to you and be like, yeah, I'm not into what you're doing with that photo. And like, she doesn't even mean there's no offense taken. I also don't take any offense to it. I'm like, oh, okay, this wasn't the vision you had for it. What were you thinking instead? It's like, you never really have to think about like how they're going to interpret the fact that you just need something to get done. And it's not about like, like sugarcoating it. You're just like, I just need the job done. Just go and do it, and
it's about the topic, not the person.
Yeah. It's more like that part. Just, we don't even have to consider it because we're with each other. Like, I know that.
And there's so many moments
we're helping each other.
Where like later I'm like, oh, sorry. I was like intense in that moment where I get it. Like, and that's really nice to have. And of course we still have our moments where it's like, yes, be mindful of that. Or I feel like you said that like a little more intensely and whatever, but it's like, it is nice that we can have those open conversations, about it. But that's a topic that I think, especially, I feel like more so when we even first started out together, I think that was just when a lot of weddings we shot, a lot of couples would be like, oh, like sometimes people wouldn't know, or like they're like bridesmaids or their friends or family members. They didn't realize we were like together, whether we were like dating or married. Yeah. People didn't realize that.
I never even considered this until right now, actually, is that this all initially started, me working for her started by me learning everything that I know how to do from her. So I don't have like some ego. Instead, I'm kind of always trying to mimic what I thought would be best for, almost like at first, what Erin thought was best. I kind of wanted it to be like, I'm trying to just complement what she's already grown into her own style. And I'm just trying to like complement that the best I can. And then now it's slowly evolved into me having my own opinions, of course.
And we developed a style.
And we've developed obviously a bit of a style together, and, it's kind of like worked out great. But yeah, honestly, never once have I ever thought that working together was anything but enjoyable. I've never had a problem with it. I think we work together great.
What you explained is basically there's a beauty in serving. And as you explained it, Mitch, that you will be serving on the wedding day to Erin, obviously also to the couple, but serving to Erin because she's the main photographer, as I understood it. And Erin 100%. Is serving towards the couple, and there is a beauty in that serving. And I'm not going to quote Jay Shetty, but it's a beautiful thing that you take yourself out of the equation and trying to make the best product for somebody else. So maybe you can run me through a gameplay of a wedding day.
Early afternoon, sort of for getting ready photos. Yeah, I'm typically with the bride, and you're usually with the groom or one half of the couple. And we sort of document that separately. So yeah, I think it's never really changed. It's like, unless they're kind of getting ready in the same area, we'll kind of go between the two, and we prefer that because I'm like jealous that you get to shoot and I don't, and vice versa.
I think there's things that we like enjoy shooting as well. Like, I know there's definitely certain like even moments throughout a wedding that maybe Erin maybe even like just enjoys a little bit more, or like, she shoots everything better than me, but I was going to say she probably shoots it better, or she's better at like getting that, very particular shot. Like, there's definitely like these weird, like unspoken things we've never said. Like, I always get the shot of the ring going on the fingers, but then the more we do it, I kind of do always get that shot. Yeah. We never talked about it. We never say, okay, Mitch I'll always be the one to go up and get that. But then when a wedding happens, when the ceremony is going on, I'm kind of always the one to go and get that shot. The same way in that, I don't know, Erin's like so good at setting up people for like a portrait, like a group photo, for instance, like a, wedding party or family photos or whatever it is. So usually,
let's talk about this for a moment. Please, let's talk about this. It was one of my of my things is like, how great can you do group family photos or wedding party photos? Referencing that garden party that you had. And I think you had everybody on the stairs in front of the house and everybody was like lined up looking like I don't know, it was a state affair. And
yeah, you know what's funny is I used to be intimidated. So here, I feel like it's become very popular here where it's either people do sort of no wedding party or people do a big wedding party. Almost like there's no in between really anymore. Like I find, so it would overwhelm me at first. But now I'm like, the more the merrier. I love it. I'm like, the more people, the better. I think it's like a cooler photo or like the more I can play with. So
we've also kind of like changed the way that we'll approach getting those particular photos as well.
Yeah.
Because I feel like for a while, I don't know if it was because of what we got back from clients, and we thought the clients wanted always to have like more photos, like or more group photos. But if depending on the size of the group, we'll put all our focus into getting like one really good shot.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll take more than one. But the idea, like we set up and we pose one like epic, very like Vanity Fair-esque type, if that's a style they're into, you know, type of photo. And we won't go to like a new location after. It's like, we'll get that one big group shot. We'll get versions of it, some side angles as well, you know, whatever, like
different expressions.
Yeah. Different expressions, like variations of it. But for the most part, like you mentioned, like the, you know, garden party, you use some cool big stairs out front of a church or someone's, you know, cool home or whatever it is. And we'll use that space to just take one good photo. And that'll be like, we'll just try and make that one really, really good. And that's it. Depending on how many people there are, of course.
Yeah. And I think just because it has sort of like transitioned to that, like I used to think more was better. But now I've realized, and again, it's interesting, just all these different like fads or trends and stuff that happen through weddings, but even like micro other trends that like branch off to things where, again, like I was saying before, it was kind of like why I always shot weddings where it was kind of like three to five bridesmaids, groomsmen on either side. But then now it's become very much like, it's either like, it's just our sister and our brother, or we have nobody and they're just signing papers, or people are like, I couldn't choose. So we have 20 on each side. So it's like, I feel like it's very much become that. And it's fun to play up on that. But it's the people that I have been finding that are doing those huge troops. Again, they're like, we don't need a million. They're like, we just want one really beautiful shot that's like so I used to always feel like I had to kind of rush through because I want to give them like variations and options and stuff.
Yeah.
But actually now I take more time being like, this is the one shot. And again, with what I was saying before, I think people appreciate it, especially the extended friends and family and stuff, that they're like, cool, I just need to be part of this. Like, you know, they're going to be part of more photos, of course, but like this one amazing, epic, like posed shot, this is what we're putting our time and effort into. And once we have the pose down, you know, however many clicks we're taking, you know, maybe it takes like 3 minutes, not even 2 minutes to get it. And then they're done. And I think people appreciate that. And again, with the encouragement, I'm like, this is amazing because it is. And I think people also find it fun because they're kind of like, oh, am I standing? Am I sitting? Am I sitting on the ground? You know, like they're having fun with it. But to me, that's something also like that is a keepsake. And that's something that I feel like I've even seen just like, you know, like nostalgic photos from not even my past, but just like from the 1800s, you know what I mean? Like those are the photos that you would see. And actually that particular wedding you're talking about, it's cool because that home is 150 years old. And there's actually a ton of amazing family photos we did in front of that house that like weren't on the stairs, but they were actually recreating. They have the original family.
Oh, like an old photo or something.
An original family that owned. They had that. And so they were actually like, can we recreate this? So we did. And it's amazing because they're like, 150 years later or whatever, 100 years later, we're recreating that. And it's amazing. So it also just proves that it's like, even though there are all these different trends and stuff, it's like, we're still referencing something from 100 years ago.
It's so cool because
Sorry, go ahead.
It makes it so intentional, and it's not like we have to go through this list, to this hideous list where you step in here, and it kind of creates this stressful 10 to 15 minutes of bride and groom trying to find every family member and really incorporating everybody on their single and individual thing, but everybody commits to one thing. And I think it's again about like serving to one thing and getting a say in, I was part of this. And this is not just my individual photo of me with the bride and groom, but I make it work, and I should put my best effort in. So not only I look good, but I make everybody else look good in that picture. So I think this is a thing I need to try out. But you guys have perfected it, and it's and with knowing that that bride and groom were intentional about taking that photo and trying to recreate something that comes from their legacy or their heritage is so much more important. And one thing that brides and grooms should also, it's not about how it looks, but how it makes you feel, how about your wedding makes you feel, and making an individual, and it's not having your initials on your everywhere, but putting something that has to do with your past or your family into your wedding that you can actually talk about. So I think this is just, you guys are outstanding when it comes to that. It's like I was sitting in front of that photo, and it was not even only as a whole it was beautiful, but I was like looking at every single couple that was lined up. I was like, how cool is this? It's not a group photo; it's also a single photo of everybody at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's the thing too.
I love getting a good group together. It's like you said, it's also stressful and everything. It is. It's like it's definitely like low key one of the most stressful parts of a wedding. Sometimes is like when everyone's like kind of mingling, kind of talking, supposed to be taking photos. Where'd that family member go? Oh my god, I don't know everyone's names. Someone should be calling out that next. You know what I mean? It's like it's chaos. It's often chaos.
It's truly chaos. But then it's like it's kind of like this sense of like such an accomplishment too for everyone that's part of it. Because it's like, then once you do get it,
it's like a weight lifted off almost. You're like, ooh, that was the hardest part for sure. Like we got it done. Yeah. So it kind of feels like smooth sailing sometimes after that. You're like, oh, it's just time to like take photos of stuff that like looks pretty, you know, like just cool looking stuff.
You're one of the few photographers I know that actually shoot Nikon. And you still do, right?
Yes. Yep.
Cool.
Is that uncommon?
I don't. Yes, it's very uncommon.
Why
it is really
like
uncommon.
Amongst like any photographer though, or just wedding? I don't know this. I didn't know this.
I would say wedding for sure, but even just like our generation, like I feel like it's like I feel like it's like a 50-year-old plus man camera brand.
No way,
right? It's like It's like a dad like. Yeah, like landscape bird photographer, like kind of, but like that's why I my very first camera I used, which I know was one of your questions that you didn't ask, but it was one of my very first camera was because I stole it from my dad, and it was a Nikon, and it was just like this funny little cool pics camera. I actually had it on my phone because I like looked it up because I was like, where is that? Like, what is that camera? Even trying to Google it was hard to find because I think it was made in 1999, but it flipped. So like to me, I was like, that's just what I was used to using. So like I shot with that first, which was Nikon. And then my dad actually was like, you need to learn film photography. So I took his Canon A1, a film camera, which that's sort of how I ended up learning how to shoot film. But I kind of just got all my dad's hand-me-downs because my dad's just a very avid hobby photographer. My dad's like an incredible landscape photographer. He's so talented. But I just that's what I had. It was Nikon. So that's all I ended up using. And one of my best friends in high school, we both were really, really into photography. She also shot Nikon because her dad did too. So to me, Nikon was like the only camera. Of course, in my high school, they actually did have Canon cameras, but in my brain, I was just like, Nikon is where it's at. That's all I knew. But then it was funny because like, you know, getting older and like graduating from university and getting more into like photography scene and meeting more people, I was like, oh, everyone shoots with Canon. And then of course, so many people would comment or like always say that was so strange. But it's honestly just, it's what I know. And we haven't changed. We haven't switched. So.
And like I mentioned before, I mean, I didn't do this before being with you. So whatever she was using is pretty much what I learned on. And then after that, it was like, well, I guess this is what I shoot with. So I don't know anything different.
You guys are always my end to a sentence when somebody's like, yeah, Canon is better than Sony, or Sony is better than Canon, or forget Nikon because nobody's really shooting. It's like, yeah, look up Erin Leydon on Instagram. And I want you to tell me if you still are of the opinion that Nikon is not relevant anymore. And I think it's just beautiful, and it shows that it's not about the gear that you come with. But I thought it was really funny because looking through the workshop that we've been to, and Ben obviously shoots with Canon. I shoot with Canon. There were a couple of Sony photographers there, and it's really not about that. And I also have a friend, an Austrian wildlife and travel photographer. She's an Nikon ambassador. Maybe that's where the greens are. I don't know. It's
right. I know it's so funny. There were moments too when I had a lot of friends who worked in camera stores and obviously were very much into gear and stuff. And there were moments where I almost, especially when I feel like Canon was like, just like everyone shot Canon. And I also just feel like they did such a good job with like advertising and everything that I did have moments where I was kind of like, oh, like, should I switch over? Is it weird? But then I kind of like that I was different. And then I also I've honestly never been really big into gear. My dad has really helped me with all that stuff over the years. And then obviously I've gained enough of obviously my own knowledge, our own knowledge and everything too. But I absolutely fully wholeheartedly believe it is not about the machine you're using. It is about the person behind the camera. And that sounds like super cliche, but it is so
but
true.
You get questions often though, right? People will write Erin and be like, what did you shoot this with? And she'll often tell me, she's like, oh my God, it's someone else asking like, what camera did I use? Or what lens was this? It's like, it's not, I don't think you like the photo because of what I used to shoot it with. That's, you know what I mean?
Like, of course, that's a component of it. But
I mean,
or there was so many times, like, for a long time, my Instagram was fully just iPhone photos. And I would get that question all the time. Even sometimes now, like, even just in my stories, obviously I'm using my iPhone and still people are like, what camera did you shoot this with? I'm like, called an iPhone 14.
Yeah.
And for years, and some of the images that a lot of images I've actually sold over the years were iPhone photos. So it's I mean, using good equipment is important, especially when you're at the level that we are all at, of course. But I do really think it's the person behind.
I had that a couple of times where you still shoot Canon because everybody's apparently on Sony now. Whatever. It's like, I still do, and I still love it. And it's the tool that I know inside and out. And if you would put any other camera in it, in my hands, and I try a lot, but it takes me so much time to know where the buttons are, knowing where, because it feels second nature to just have that camera there. And I don't have to think about the technical aspect of my photography. I just am in the moment and I can shoot. So I loved it. But I still want to know is what is your focal length or your favorite lens that you used, just as a personal curiosity?
You know, it's funny, and so many photographers would be like, what? Because it's not a prime lens.
Oh, because I know you're going to say.
24 to 70.
I know what answer it is. Yep. I know exactly what she's going to say.
I don't care anymore. I used to be like, oh yeah, because it's so cool to shoot primes. I don't care. So much of my work is shot on a 24 to 70. It is like the number one lens that you need when you are.
It's so versatile.
It's the best. And you know what? I'm just going to be proud about it because
you should. Yeah,
so much. And yes, thank you. Because you had a 24-7. Yes. And
it's the best.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not one of those photographers, which again, I know a lot of people would hate this unless we're shooting film at a wedding. Then I feel like I have 9,000 cameras on me, but I do not wear a harness. I wear one camera. And I will switch sometimes between cameras. I'll grab his camera. We'll sometimes switch cameras. We have a third body. We shoot with our Leica now too, but like I don't have them all strapped to me. For multiple different reasons. I don't like to do that. So to me, I'm like, I could probably go into a wedding and confidently shoot it really, really well with my 24 to 70 2.8 and feel very, very happy. But yeah, so that is my lens. And I'm sorry to so many photographers out there that would be like, what? But
don't even be sorry. So, it's again, one thing that I will say is like, look at that body of work. And this is done with the how to say, the not disregarded lens, but everybody, I love to shoot primes as well because I somehow, but then again, it's, if you know the stress of carrying just two camera bodies, I carry two camera bodies and I have them in my hands. I don't even have a harness. I have them without a harness and without a band or a string or whatever. I carry them in my hands and I have one sitting here usually that I'm not shooting with.
We do that too.
Yeah. I've had lens so usually I'm like holding a lens like in my elbow while shooting, like not necessarily another whole camera body, but that's impressive.
That makes me feel good because sometimes I'm like, because we both do that too. So that is hilarious that you do that as well.
Yeah.
I know. And people will look at us and be like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, it just makes sense to me. It's fine.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it makes sense to you. I think this is the confidence. It's so much not about what you have to get. You don't have to have your, what are they called? Those harnesses. I have one at home. Yeah. I bought it. I tried it. I hated it. And, even if you look cool in it and everybody comments you on it, it's like, it's here. And then it's stuck in my shirt a couple of times and I don't get the moment. It's like, no, it's not working. So really be confident
like that extra X amount of like space or
it needs to be around you.
Well, and then you're like, and that's happened to me where even too, just having a strap and then having a camera sitting on my hip and shooting and like you're smacking into walls, smacking into people.
I feel like I would
when you're like crouching down and you're like hitting the
If
floor.
it was hanging off my hip, I don't know. I would be interrupting way too many quiet ceremonies, I feel like. Because I slither between people. I'm like trying to go between walls.
Trying to be so quiet and
and I'm like, I'd be making so much noise if there was like, I feel like you probably too, if there was like, you know, a bunch of cameras hanging off your hips.
Yes.
Or whatever. But
yeah.
And then there is guys like Ben, who I got to see at a wedding shoot, and he sometimes has 3 cameras on him. It's like one hanging from here, one hanging from here, another one like around here, the film camera. And sometimes it's so great that everybody gets to do what they want to do. And there is no right or wrong. And I think this is the biggest thing, to put the trust in yourself and listen to your body. It's like it's eating food that you don't like. It's like, oh, because people tell me to, I'm going to eat that. No, it's like really it's about this muscle memory. It's about what you think is the best that you can do your work. So if you,
I love that about it as well.
Yeah, me too.
Everyone does it different. There's no right or wrong. You can't look at what someone else does. Like you said, Benjamin has multiple bodies hanging off of him. It's like, well, that's not how we would do it. But does that mean that, you know, it's
that we're wrong or he's right?
That it's a better choice? Yeah, exactly. It works for him. Maybe it wouldn't work for us. Maybe it would. Maybe we'll try it one day and we'll be like, oh man,
try it out. And if you want to do it,
this is what we're missing out. I don't know. You never know. But
but there is no right or wrong. And this is, I think, also what Ben told us in the workshop, is like, there is no right or wrong. Just try to figure it out for yourself, but be open and not be closed off in terms of whatever. So this is really awesome. What is one thing that you would tell every bride and groom?
People focus on way too much about the photo location, and
agreed.
They don't focus on like their wedding day and how like plan your wedding day accordingly to how you will enjoy it, or your guests will enjoy it, your family, where you're just celebrating you and your love. Mm-hmm. And we could be anywhere and we will get great photos of you. You don't need to. So this happens a lot, like where we're from. It's like, you know, like they'll maybe pick a beautiful hotel, but then they're like, but then I also want nature photos outside. But then I like these studio type photos too. So maybe when we do our first look, then we'll drive, and like the traffic in Toronto is horrendous. So this adds to it. But, you know, then we'll cut out, you know, the day for a half an hour drive to over here so we can get photos over here. And then we'll cut the day again and then drive like 40 minutes here and try and find parking and do it. Honestly, to me, I'm like, just have your wedding where you want, and we will make the photos happen there, and it will be perfect and beautiful. So you don't need to focus so
fewer
hard.
Location changes.
Yeah. That there's maybe some trees in the background, because it's kind of one of those things where this always happens where, you know, you imagine things being a certain way and they never are. And we always want to pre-tell our clients that, but we also don't want to like interject too much. Again, we work with a lot of amazing planners that definitely see things the same way as we do, but ultimately it is up to our clients. But I think almost all of them end up realizing like, wow, we were so focused on that instead of just like the actual day. So I think that's something where I'm like, just plan your day and we will capture the photos where it's all happening and it will be perfect. So that is so definitely,
good. I absolutely agree. Definitely.
They don't need to focus on. But then what would be like one thing that you feel like that they should either spend their money on, or...
Well, he said it doesn't have to be like money specifically, but just your efforts.
Yeah, efforts into.
I feel like when you put your efforts into the details of a wedding and making things look good, like florals, for instance, or just decor in general, like the vibe of like a room, for instance, like, you know, where you're having your reception, it'll make or break the whole like atmosphere of like the wedding, the way that your photos turn out, everything.
The way that people are experiencing it.
The way that people are experiencing it. In my opinion, I feel it's like the same way that like when you go to a restaurant you want to go to, it's not always, at least for me personally, it's not always about how good the food is meant to be. I also want to know if it's like a vibe in there. Like, does it look cool? Is the decor cool? Like, when I'm in there, is it going to have a mood? Are the lights down low? Is the lighting too bright and it's going to like throw me off and it doesn't feel like I'm going to be able to have fun in here?
Have they created an experience?
Have they created like enough of an atmosphere that is conducive to fun? Like having a fun time, having a party, making good memories. And I feel like that's the thing that I would like. I appreciate it so much when people really make a wedding like look beautiful, like it looks fun to be
and
at.
A reflection of themselves.
Yeah. And it feels like them. And oftentimes I would hope that they're not just like their decor doesn't reflect like them personally. I feel like our own wedding felt very much like us. There were elements of the decor, the florals, the rug we put on the floor where we had our ceremony. Everything was a little bit kind of like taken from our own personal style and the way that we live our own lives. And I feel like that's something I wish more people incorporated.
Yeah, because
more often incorporated.
I even felt like our guests said this about our wedding. And I know, again, us being at other people's weddings, when some people walk in and look like, your wedding feels so like Erin and Mitch, or it's like your wedding feels so like,
it makes sense. Like this would be your wedding. Like your wedding, it would look this way, And
I think that when people are in that and enjoying that, they're like, I think they felt like they were over like at our house. They were in a space that represented us and that they could like enjoy. I don't know how to describe that. That sort of sounds funny, but like, yeah, there is a different level of, it's obviously, again, not just because we're photographing it and it looks beautiful, but like we even just see other people's reactions and the way people move about the space and everything when there is those attention to details. And again, it doesn't have to be every little, like, every person doesn't need a little gift at their table, or everything doesn't need to be like, completely so expensive or so meticulous, but still.
Yeah. It's not about money either. It's just about creating a space that feels, personal to the clients. Yeah. It doesn't mean more money spent or a bigger venue or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Putting yourself into the wedding and not planning a wedding around you that you're having a good day. This is this intentional aspect of a wedding that I try when I talk to my couples, is like, really don't forget yourself in the planning process. It's like, what would you like? And even if it's a stupid dessert that you just love or it's a side thing, and this is, if I would choose a menu that I would like to eat, is obviously my favorite dessert and not the dessert maybe that the restaurant or the caterer or whoever offers. Is like, look for those details of, oh, that's so Erin, or that's so Mitch, or she would totally get that. I don't know, whatever you guys had, drink, cocktails, whatever. Just make it really personal. And I think this is what people then appreciate, because everybody has been out to a restaurant or to an event that, everybody had that experience, but a wedding should be about the people there and not about the venue, and not about the hotel, and not about the caterer. So I could not agree more. Do you guys travel a lot for weddings?
Quite a bit. There
have been years that where it's been more for sure. Yeah. Like a couple of years ago, we had a summer where I felt like every couple of weeks we were on a plane to go somewhere else. But then, for instance, the summer that had just passed, did we go? Where did we go?
3 different destination weddings, so it wasn't a lot.
Like and a handful,
New York, so that wasn't too bad. And like Barbados, I do think after it was 2022, it felt very, very overwhelming. So we were like, maybe just a couple a year, because
it's a lot.
It's exhausting. I mean, also, you have to think of like where we are in the world too. Like sometimes I see people that live in Europe and I'm like, oh, that's so nice. You can, not that it's still exhausting, but like a quick flight here and a quick flight there, and you're in a different, beautiful country. It's not like that for us. We like, most of our flights are 5 hours plus if we're going somewhere, even if it's to the West Coast, because we've done quite a few weddings or engagement shoots or shoots in general, just like on the West Coast. And that's a 5-hour drive, a 3-hour time difference, between.
You say a 5-hour drive?
Flight. Sorry.
It's just a quick 5-hour drive to Vancouver. No big deal.
But even too, like, I feel like we still not that their destination, we live in the city of Toronto, but we do have quite a few, sort of like country weddings or, cottage country weddings. So it's like, you know, especially with traffic, that can end up being usually around 3 hours drive. So like we have a lot of that as well.
Yeah, I never even considered that. A lot of our travel sometimes isn't even flying somewhere. It's just that we have to drive really far to get there and then to return from that place.
Or to like New York, different parts of New York too.
Yeah.
And it's like
we still consider that travel. You got to pack up. You still got to, you know what I mean? There's just as much responsibility as it is to pack up all your stuff and fly somewhere.
Yeah. But yeah, so I would say we've done quite a few, a good amount of weddings.
Yeah. Do you?
How many do you do in general?
Well, I'm curious. Do other wedding photographers like travel often for work? I'm curious.
Yeah, of course. Lots do.
Especially that's why I phrase it, do you travel a lot? Because I hate the word destination wedding.
Yes.
Yeah.
So wrong. Especially when you sit in the second largest country in the world. So if I drive in the car for 3 hours from where I am right now, I could hit 9 countries.
That's not even
and you hit one.
Yeah,
exactly.
You might not even leave the province, depending on the direction you drive in.
Yeah,
being mindful about where you're doing it, and not just to make it look pretty, but does it actually also feel nice? Is it worth the stress? Is it worth the hassle? And you always have to work with a planner that you don't like have sitting next to you, that you cannot meet face to face, and take that stress out of. And I think in a world where you are like constantly flooded with information about, oh, you could do this and you could do this, about the vast majority of things that you can decide on at a wedding, it puts you in a state of you can basically move because you don't know which way to go. Just try to focus on where would I like to be? What should the day look like? When do I want to get up? When would the light be good? Maybe something like that. What's the travel distances? I've had wonderful weddings that look so nice on pictures that were just a lot of hassle included, just having people management. Like getting 60 to 100 people from A to B is a nightmare. Even if it's 15 minutes, 15 minutes during, and nobody realizes that, and there's like, oh, that created a lot of stress that we didn't anticipate. So try to get that. Try to be mindful about how would you want to go through that day to make it really yours and appreciate it without being the aspect of we have to make it perfect and make it 17 shooting locations because we want landscape, we want sundown, we want sunrise, we want the studio aspect, and etc.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Or if you want all of that, I would suggest do not do that on your actual wedding day. Which we've done before too. And I know it's also just like very popular, especially within some cultures too. It's like they have their wedding day and then they do a photo shoot on, you know, they travel somewhere, maybe to Italy or to wherever in the world, Iceland, whatever, and they bring their dress, they bring their outfits, and they do exactly that. And maybe they spend 1 full day or 2, 3 days so that they can get a great sunrise, a great sunset, and whatever. But that's not a wedding. That's a planned photo shoot. Yeah.
But still, it's part of the legacy that you leave behind. And I think this
absolutely
is not, that doesn't have to be on that one day. I love those destination weddings because of the one simple aspect that people travel there prior. So you have usually a get together, and people are that I get to meet everybody and get to check the surrounding and the vibes, and everybody gets used to me. And this is so comfortable. And then in the morning, say, hey, how are you doing on the actual wedding day? And people know what to do. And if they want a photo, they can approach me. And it's more of a communal thing, obviously happening. But other than that, it's like really try to not make it too overcomplicated. Just try to make it a really nice day. I want to touch on the post processing just quickly. Do you, because you said you developed that style together? How did you? Where does the biggest part of your inspiration come from when you think of your body of work? Is it one thing that you say, I want that style of editing, of post processing in every wedding, or is it depending obviously on the location that you shoot and on the people you shoot?
For sure. I think we combine, you can talk more on this because he does, like, I would say 95% of the editing, at least, all of our editing. But I think just in terms of the look and feel, I think it is definitely a combination of obviously our style and our aesthetic, but like a lot to do with the day, the mood of the day, the location, the couple, like you said before, skin tone. But yeah, we very much lean into like day and location and couple.
For sure.
And how like, again, their aesthetic of their wedding with editing, for sure.
Yeah. I always want the photos to definitely to reflect how the day felt. To be honest, it almost makes me a little bit nervous sometimes when people beforehand have too much of I don't know, I guess an expectation for their day to like look a certain way. Because if you're expecting like, the sunny summer day and then it ends up being like kind of rainy, it's like, first of all, it's going to be near impossible to even make those photos look like it was sunny if it just like quite literally was not. But I also think that's part of the beauty of like shooting a day that you can't plan for. I mean, you plan it, but you can't plan for the weather, obviously, right? It doesn't matter what time of the year for the most part. It's always going to be a bit of a shot in the dark. And I think it's kind of cool to lean into whatever it is that you got that day. Maybe the studio that you shot at normally has amazing light, but if it's overcast, there's not much pouring in through those windows anymore, then then maybe it's a bit moodier, or maybe we have to shoot it in a bit of a different way. And I think the coloring and the way that it all kind of like comes together in the end should reflect how the day felt when you were living it. At least for me personally, I try and do it that way. While at the same time, all of our weddings having a bit of a cohesive, like they all look like they were shot by the same duo as well. I never want something to look so vastly different that you're like, well, who shot this one? Because that's a completely different style than that one. I feel like we're always kind of trying to keep things feeling sort of natural, but like a slightly enhanced version, which I know is kind of vague, but that's kind of the way.
Vague. There are probably more than two approaches, but two approaches come to mind where it's like, I have this one editing way that I do, which I see now is obviously in 2024, it was the year of black and white photography. Right. I don't know why. If I was the only one, it's like all of a sudden nobody wants to show color anymore. It's like, okay, black and white is obviously beautiful, but it doesn't show too much the skill of a photographer in showing just black and white. I hope that I don't offend anybody, but but really try to show, because it's such a big part of the process of photography is to do the editing right and to try to recreate the mood and the vibe and the color. It speaks so much of energy in a wedding. And I think with you guys, it's for sure 100% is like, that's a Leydon photography a photo, but it's not one preset that fills all the gaps. And it's this one cohesive look on it's not the cohesive look of the coloring on if I would go on a feed or on your website, but it's that way of the type of photography that you do that speaks more towards your cohesiveness, rather than I do desaturated everything. And that's the mood of 2024, which again, no offense to anybody who does that, because that's your style. And if you want to do that, you should do it. And it's so cool that you find that way. And it's so different that you sometimes go into a room, and if you don't want to use a flash at that moment, and the room is just, I don't know, green or red, then it will look vastly different, that you cannot otherwise go around editing and making it feel natural. It was just the vibe of the room that made it look that certain way. And I think it's, because I always try to think of bride and groom, what could they take away from a podcast like this, is like, don't go into what you said with a preconception of this is what we want, this is the style that we want. Rather go for the photographer that you want. Go for the aesthetics that you want, not of the editing style, because it's now on vogue. And I myself dipped into the blurry photo vibe this year, and I'm guilty of that. And I actually think sometimes it's really cool, but then there is the way that sometimes and then there is the way of obviously motion that our dear friend Benjamin Wheeler is so known for, and I think he's the prime example of where there's between blurriness and getting motion into photography, it's like the exact opposite side of the spectrum. So I think it's exactly that. go for the way that the photography makes you feel, not what it looks like.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. I totally agree.
Cool. Yeah.
You are the prime example, I think, around the world of handling greens in photography. Really, it's really you guys. It's not the gear that it makes it. I think an oak tree has the same color green almost anywhere in the world at the same like the time, but you make it look different than I do, obviously. So that's awesome. I have one more topic that I want to dip quickly in. It's the whole editorial non-wedding photography side.
Yeah, I think I've always just been really intrigued by people. And like I said earlier, like real people, even though I shoot models too. I shoot for brands and companies and stuff. So usually that is.
You like things that feel like they're telling a story though. Yeah. I feel like you lean in more towards accepting work that feels like, I think Erin tends to lean more into accepting work that feels like she's also like telling a bit of a story, not just like a brand that's got cool clothes and that's the only reason why she's interested.
Yeah.
I feel like it's often because she likes the women who run the brand, who make the cool clothes. And that's part of why I want to be part of the shoot. You know what I mean? Like it's more than just this looks like I can take a cool picture and it'll get me like a bunch of likes on Instagram or something like that. It's like, I think it's more than that.
I think, and maybe this is me I went to art school. I studied photography in university and stuff. And to me, I think everything always has to have a concept and a meaning. So although sometimes it is just fun to get, a model, a great looking person who knows how to be in front of a camera and just, wears everything so beautifully. Like that is really fun. But I think it's just for me, like the challenge lacks, or I'm just like, what am I trying to say here? And I think that can never leave my brain, even with a wedding, even when I'm like so specific about selecting like what I'm going to share, let's say on Instagram or something, I always want it to tell a story as much as possible. So I think, editorial or portraiture for me is just, again, I'm just intrigued by people and usually by telling their story. So, which I think goes like hand in hand with wedding photography. I don't know. I think it's like a really, really nice balance. I mean, also our seasons here are very different where, our weather again is not the best. So it's, we have like one wedding in January, but our typical like busy season for weddings is usually like May till December, but usually like May to October is like the busy time because our weather is finally good here and nicer. People can be outside or we're not worried about blizzards. But also just genuinely, I'm just so intrigued by it. And I think just over the years from, going from weddings to like, making connections with my different clients and then passing my name on to other people and going from like sort of headshot work. And I interned at a magazine when I was younger and seeing that side of things. It kind of just ended up snowballing and it was just somewhere like I found myself just as intrigued by as wedding photography. And like they kind of both happened at the exact same time. And I just kind of never let one of them go. But I think they complement each other really, really well.
You like photographing people.
Yeah.
So the editorial stuff just leans itself to that because it's like, well, it's what you're going to be shooting when you do a lot of that type of work as well. It's a lot of it is portraits. And I think that's what you prefer to do.
Yeah. And a lot of the editorial work that I get here, even just more of like, Canadian based magazines or editorials and stuff, it usually is, it's sort of more news, I guess, in ways, or it's like their articles on said people and whether that's like, lifestyle or, a book they wrote or a home they built or whatever it is. And of course, like, I've shot some celebrities and stuff too, but usually it's for like a project that they're working on, a movie that just came out or whatever it may be. So it still is, that story element to it too.
For sure.
Do you ever get starstruck when you shoot a celebrity?
Have you shot anyone that you were like a fan of? Oh yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, a couple. So I've also shot a lot of, which again has worked out in my favor. And my old director of photography, him and I would, because he'd even be like, oh, okay, you're shooting this person. And often I didn't know who people were, so it was fine. And then like later I'd find out, or sometimes I would try not like learn too much about somebody who was quite well known or celebrity to some degree, just so that I wouldn't
if you're not
feel
familiar
that way.
With them already.
It made it easier for sure. Although I think it is very important to do research on any subject you have.
That's important too.
Even my wedding clients, and I don't know how many people do that, but I think I just, as much as I can know about somebody, I will. And that goes for my wedding clients for a portrait I'm taking of somebody, I will try and do my research as much as I can find out about them, and whether that's online or, like on the internet somewhere, Google, or just their personal Instagram account. But yeah, sometimes with certain celebrities or well-known people, I will be like, okay, I can't know too much. Otherwise I will start to be like, obviously get starstruck.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been like 2 or 3 celebrities that I've photographed and I felt, starstruck or sort of almost like nervous, intimidated by, for sure. Which is funny because it can really affect your work.
It can, yeah.
Or the way you approach things. I'm like, who am I? I feel so weird. It's just, that nervous feeling.
Yeah.
How is it for you to stand in front of the camera, or you as a pair? Also, I think you're celebrities by now, in some sort of way. Well, and brands come up to you and want to do collaborations. They put your work on their products that are like well known around the world. It's like, is that something that you find intimidating, or is this just nice to have, or is it something that you, if you talked about manifested, that you work towards?
Yeah, I think it's just like anything that to us that feels like aligned with who we are. We've also been approached by a lot more other brands, like with our own faces, or, sort of us being like the models for it, or us promoting it or whatever. And if it doesn't feel aligned, we say no. I think we're in a good position that obviously because of our like actual work and our photography that we do, we don't necessarily need to do that stuff. But I think it's like when it's aligned with us and we believe in, like, let's say Uniqlo, it's like a brand we've shopped for many years, we both like, and I think just aligns with our lifestyle and it speaks to us, so that it is something that we obviously like, we want to be part of, and we want more of that stuff because I think all of that sort of goes hand in hand with what we do. But me being on the other side of the camera, it's not the easiest thing.
I don't love it. I don't love it either, personally. Nah. Yeah. It's also always so completely flattering and also surprising almost anytime anyone is like, we want you to do this, or like, we want you to shoot each other. I'm like, what? Why? What? Really? Okay. It's like, it never feels, I think you literally like, I don't know. It's not something we've gotten used to for sure. Every time I'm surprised, I'm like, they want us to do that? Why?
And I think,
I don't know.
But I do think it's very good practice every time, because it tends to be, well, you and I, but it does tend to, people ask me, probably because I feel like my social media, like I put more into like, at least mine. I find my social media, even though it's Erin Leydon, it's our work, like 95% of it is, unless it's not, or a random, I don't know.
For sure. Well, I mean, if you're sharing like a wedding, for instance, that we shot, I mean, there's definitely going to be either something that I put my hand to in there, whether it be the editing or a photo that slipped in that I happen to have shot. I don't know.
But
it's definitely our work.
I do find that people, let's say that last Uniqlo ad or last couple I did, it was just me, but he's photographing me. But it is really nice and refreshing to be on the other side, because I'm like, it's not easy and it's not comfortable. And even though, and I've had so many people over the years to me even be like, because I actually say, I'm like, I don't have like a proper, just like a portrait of me looking at a camera and smiling.
Well, for years we didn't have ones of us together as a couple either. Barely had any.
And then now, people will be like, oh, you have nice photos and whatever. I'm like, yeah, I know, but they were from like more of a particular thing or whatever. But still, I'm like, that, and that's hard to get. It's hard. It's hard being on the other side. And I don't know, I guess, unless it is something, again, if it's your profession, if you're a model or an actor or whatever, but it's not something that I think anyone can ever really get like fully used to and fully comfortable with. It's like, I think no matter what, it's such a strange feeling to be in front of the lens and then also see yourself how other people see you.
Yeah. Definitely.
My last question is, when is work finished? When is a photo finished? When do you put it up?
Okay,
when do you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Oh, I don't know. It depends who you ask. Obviously you're asking us, but I mean, like your dad, for instance, will play around with one photo for, a week, maybe more. I don't know. It depends. It's until he's feels like he's done with it. But how do you call it? How are you like?
I think it's also just so dependent on like what we're working on. But I think a photo, I mean, obviously
it's a feeling first and foremost. I was going to say, like, you're a photographer, you get it. But sometimes I'll move past a photo when I've just felt like I've accomplished what I thought I had in my head. So sometimes if I see a photo, I know what I'm capable of doing with it. And if it's going the way that I want it to, sometimes it'll take a second. I'll do a couple little things, boom, boom, boom. Okay, it's exactly how I hoped it would look. Yeah. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Sometimes I'll go back to the photo and I'm like, I got a better idea. And then I'll play around a little bit more. So it's always different. There is no just like, oh, I know it's done when I've accomplished this. But for the most part, it's just when I've done what I hoped it would look like, when I've made it look how I hoped it would.
Yeah.
That's pretty much when I'm like, okay, I think I'm good.
And it gives you exactly like that.
But I could also change things like all day long. I go back to photos. I'm constantly tweaking. Even when you mention the greens, I'm like, you have no idea how much I appreciate someone bringing that up, because I change so many little details from photo to photo. I'm not a copy and paste your entire photo gallery type of guy at all, to the point where sometimes she's coming up to me and she's like, you have like hundreds and hundreds of other photos to do, right? Like you can't spend that much time on each one. But to me, it's like, but that is what makes sometimes a gallery of work feel special. Because I feel like even if someone doesn't know quite how much time, maybe for instance, you put into a particular photo, you, for whatever reason, you might still feel it. You might feel that someone put the care and effort into making this look the best that it possibly can. And I feel like that's the only compliment I really want at the end of sending a bunch of photos to someone, is to get back the response that they're just happy with how they look. That's all you really want, right? I like the way this looks. That's the best thing you can hear. This
energy that you put into the day or into that product is what then shows. And I think it's only then valid if you said, I didn't do a job today because this is my life. So this editing was, I could spend like an hour on the couch, like napping, would also serve me. But I experience something. I grow while I'm doing this, because I'm thinking about and I'm learning and I'm appreciating and putting that effort into the product. I think speaks then for itself, because it then actually shows.
Absolutely. We just said that the other night. Yeah. The other night we were like, well, you could have the night off and just sit and like, binge watch some Netflix or something like that. And instead I was like, you know what? I'm feeling really inspired by these photos right now. Can we just like put the laptop next to the other computer and let's just like sit and work together? It was like late at night. We just had a little editing session. It was fun. It was like, we were enjoying it. It's genuinely something that we enjoy. So like, it doesn't often feel like jobs at all. It's just something we like to do anyway.
Yeah.
It's just awesome that it's also a job.
Yeah. Guys, thank you so much. 1 hour and 32 minutes. Thank you so much for your time. That was very, very cool. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And
thanks for having us.
That you guys are episode 1 of Capture All. So that's it.
Amazing. Thank you.
Cool. Hey, that was so cool.
Time to do this. This was so fun. Yeah, it was actually like really nice and very easy to talk to you. So
cool.
Thanks for doing stuff like this.
It's just something we can yap about all day too. Yeah. So sorry we take up so much of your time, but we appreciate the fact that you wanted to talk to us even at all. So thank you.
I appreciate it so much that people take time to talk about their work, because I think as photographers, anybody who puts a wedding planner or whatever, or an editorial planner or a project manager, whatever, that there is so much going into the work that you talk about someone else's life, because that's the photo of the wedding that you took from someone else's life, that you just don't have the time to reflect on what you actually are doing yourself and what you're creating. Yeah. And it's not about this fear of I'm comparing myself against all those other photographers that are out there. They're also doing great stuff, and where I say, oh man, where am I? And am I really good at this self-doubt thing? But then I think this is some also so therapeutic in a sense, not only for me. I hope when you talk about your own work, because I grew up like very classically Austrian, is like, don't talk too much about yourself, keep a little quiet, don't brag, don't do that. And I think it's obviously being humble is nice, but being too humble it does something to your energy and to your life that it's not good. And so I think the way of getting people in front of a microphone at least is so valuable, because everybody has a story to tell, as you do in your work anyway, and it's worth telling your own story. And it was really hard to get to write the introduction, because there's so little that you actually can find about other than where you will find an article about your wedding. But then it's about your wedding. It's not about you. It's about the wedding that you did, which was awesome, and it looked so great. And I think it's cool to have that, and to also, because people will appreciate that it's this, to be able to listen to you guys and talk about it.
And can I say, I actually was saying to Mitch, I'm like, this is the first time because I've talked in different podcasts, I've done different interviews, but this is the first time that somebody has wanted to include Mitch. And I've always said, I just wish you were part of it. I wish they wanted you to be part of it. And like, maybe that's like a little bit more like up to me to be like, let's include Mitch. But I'm like, he's such an integral part. And there's sometimes where I'm like, we feed off of each other so much because there's like a whole other, even though we work together, there's so much that like he doesn't touch and so much that I don't touch, but it is all encompassing. Like that is our work. And I think it's really important to hear like from both of us. So thanks for asking both of us to be on this.
It means a lot. I'm not Austrian, but I do also have a hard time talking about myself. And I feel like, so it's really difficult to have someone ask you questions and compliment you and say nice things and for you to accept them and not just want to be like, okay, stop. Let's move on to something else.
So one of the things that I try to improve myself on is like being kinder to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think it's important.
And sadly, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I feel the same way. So being kinder to yourself and appreciate what you do. And you guys did a fantastic job. I love your work. Really.
It truly means
such
a lot,
a big fan. And sometimes I hope I don't come up, or always as a stalker when I'm like, this photo is so good.
No.
This number 2 photo is like,
I think it's awesome.
I don't even normally share any sort of, cause like the same thing. I feel like being humble is, I don't know. I'm the same way. I also didn't grow up Austrian, but I think especially when you work in a job where I'm so constantly like, just like I'm serving other people. It's about other people. It's about getting a great photograph of them. It's about making them feel comfortable. That
it's less about
it is weird to talk about yourself or have those, those moments. But, that's my train of thought. What was I just going to say about this before?
I don't remember where we were going with that.
Oh yeah, but when you wrote me and said that our greens were good, and it's, we get a lot of nice compliments. We get really, really great feedback and emails and stuff. I never we just get excited with each other and we're just so happy that our clients are happy, and I'll sometimes share with my mom or my dad and stuff, but I never want to be like, I don't want to gloat. I don't want to whatever. But when you wrote that was just something to me where I was like, this is such a nice compliment from another photographer whose work I appreciate and just appreciate as a person too. So, and I appreciate your like vision and your aesthetic and your eye and everything too. But also that was just something where it's like, it was so nice to be able to share that with clients. Cause sometimes I'm like, do they get it? Do they know? They, like,
does anyone else need this? Does anyone else notice this?
Yeah. And it's funny because I actually got a lot of really, really great responses from that. And even from a lot of my clients that don't necessarily know about photography or editing or anything, I think everybody has like a bit of an idea because now everyone uses Instagram or social media. So they understand, even saturation, contrast and whatever. But it is funny because I got even a lot of feedback from clients being like, that's actually why we hired you, or that's something we really love about our imagery, or like that's something, so it was cool. So, and I actually think we need more of that because I think it is hard in our industry because it is so like isolating. And then it can always feel like you said, like, am I good enough? Or it can feel like competition, but it's not because like we all need to sort of help each other and like make each other feel good or like, let out our secrets and help one another because it's like there is more than enough work for everybody. One person or one team can't take on everything. And it's important to share that stuff. And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's that really the literal act of serving. I would carry your, like, I don't know, a charger or a battery just to be be part of seeing you guys shoot a wedding. Not to learn, but just to get that energy from. And I think really it shouldn't be a competition. It's the big thing I learned is always, for me, it's always community over competition. And it's so self-isolating because it seems like, oh yeah, everybody's doing so much. Everybody is hustling so much and doing such great work. And it feels that you feel this intense pressure, which is just stupid. Like, be kinder to each other. Try to support. Try when someone has a question, or even you have a question, just reach out. If the people say no, okay, and you at least tried, because but it even makes you feel better. Just don't anticipate that people will give you everything because you want to know something. It's like show your appreciation of it in some sort of way, and see what's coming back. But don't. It's not always not too many things have to balance each other out. It's like, I give you a compliment, you have to give me a compliment. No, if I give you a compliment, just take it and be hopefully happy about it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Guys,
totally.
I don't want to keep you any longer.
No,
that was
good.
awesome. Thanks again. So cool.
Sounds good.
Love meeting you, Mitch. It
was it's great to meet you
it's
too.
also, it's like, oh, I've seen him. He's like
Pleasure.
such a cool guy. It's like, how can he pull off like certain like fashions? Like,
Thanks, man.
and then it's so nice. Yeah, man. It's so, yeah.
I'm glad we got to hang out and talk.
I know. I'm sad we don't live closer.
I know. You're so far away. I'm like, well, now I want to hang out with you. I'm like,
Maybe
let's get
gotta
together.